Hey y'all, this is Drew Holcomb, and you're listening to Walking the Floor.
I'm walking the floor over you.
Walking the floor.
I'm walking the floor. Walking the floor over you.
Hola, senors and senoritas. This is Chris Shiflett bringing you another fine edition of your favorite podcast, Walking the Floor. You love it. Oh man, spring break is over, kids. It's over and we're back to work, getting back into the groove around here. We were out in Kauai. I was out in Kauai with my family last week. Fantastic. Rained the whole time. Got no sun, but then nobody got sunburned. So that was pretty good. They're fun waves. Good waves to be had. We're back now. There's no waves to be had in Los Angeles. But no waves all winter. Looks like there's going to be no waves all spring. Fingers crossed that we get some waves before I got to leave for tour next week. But I don't know. Doesn't look good. Oh, I wanted to let you know a little update on my potential Ted Nugent interview. So you may remember that there was some very excited feedback from a social media post of mine, and somebody suggested that Ted Nugent needed to give me a history lesson. So we reached out to Ted Nugent's camp, and it's not locked down, but I think they're game. I think we might score the Ted Nugent interview, and if we do, I'm definitely gonna ask him for that history lesson. I'm excited. I'm a Ted Nugent fan. I don't care about his politics. I mean, I don't agree with his politics, but I am excited to interview the man because he's a rock legend. Also, let me remind you once again, the Fuckaroos, April 17th at the Continental Club in glorious Austin, Texas. It's the night before Foo Fighters start the tour down there. I'm going to go play a honky-tonk show with a bunch of buddies of mine. We did it a few years ago. We're doing it again. It's going to be loose and unrehearsed, and we're going to kind of wing it. But come on down. If you're in town, April 17th, come to the Continental Club in Austin, Texas. And don't forget to get your vinyl copy of West Coast Town. It's out now on Rusted Wave. There's still a few copies left. I read on their website that none other than Rolling Stone has hailed my record, West Coast Town, as one of the top country releases of 2017. It's last year. So get to rustedwave.com and order yours today. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about Zounds.com. Did you know that every order $599 and above on Zounds.com is eligible for their exclusive 12-payment plan? There's no application process, no interest charged ever, and all you got to do is just pay your first monthly installment and your gear ships immediately. Boom! Zounds.com. All right, let's get to the interview. Okay, so last fall I was out on the road with Foo Fighters and found myself stranded in Nashville for a few days because we had to postpone some gigs. So I holed up in my hotel room and just did a bunch of interviews. One of them being Mr. Drew Holcomb of Drew Holcomb and the Neighbors. Drew hails from Memphis, Tennessee. And as you know, Memphis is one of America's most important and influential music cities ever. From blues to rockabilly, the Elvis and Sun Records and all that, to Stax, to Ardent, to Drew Holcomb and the Neighbors. He's the latest in a long line of artists that hail from there. Despite being repeatedly interrupted by somebody ignoring my do not disturb sign, we had a nice long talk, discussed his supportive parents and family life, talked about his label, Magnolia Record Club, talked about his festival, Moon River Music Festival, and we got deep into the weeds on his songwriting. As a matter of fact, I would say that Drew gave me probably the best answer I've ever gotten from somebody about like how specifically they go about their songwriting. But I'm not going to spoil that for you. You got to listen to the whole interview to get there. All right, this is Drew Holcomb on Walking the Floor.
Sing out loud, you're a symphony.
there's a lot to talk about, but the first thing I want to talk to you about was your music festival. You
Yeah.
have your own music festival.
I do.
And we
do.
just started our own music festival.
Oh, yeah?
As Foo Fighters.
Yeah.
We just did one out, and it was sort of like a record release party. I don't know if it's going to turn into an annual or semi-annual thing, but there's sort of talk of doing it. It was called Cal Jam. We borrowed the name from the
That's awesome.
70s thing. But you've been doing a music festival for a few years, so I'm interested
Yeah.
to pick your brain about, some of the pros and cons or some of the things you've learned along the way.
Some days I'm really glad we do it, and other days I go, what do we get ourselves into? But yeah, basically, I'm from Memphis, and the whole idea came from traveling around the country for years and feeling like Memphis sort of is underrepresented, sort of in the way people think about the city. And it's an awesome town, and so I wanted to bring people to Memphis to come see my hometown. And
Yeah.
to kind of give it give people a go at seeing a great city that's probably, I think it's just a little underrated. And so it was, at first it was like, let's just get some bands and friends that we know that we'd love to invite and have like sort of a family reunion kind of vibe. And there's this awesome old venue, we did it in the first 3 years, called the Levitt Shell, which is where Elvis had his first paid show.
Really?
Yeah, and it's like a mini Hollywood Bowl. I mean, it's like at the big sort of round, amphitheater backdrop.
Yeah.
And just a big grassy area, and the city's put a bunch of money into it, and they do free concerts there all the time. And so we did it the first year. We had it was a 1-day deal. We had 7 or 8 bands, all people that we know well that are friends, folks like Will Hogue and a band out of Knoxville called the Dirty Governors. And then the second year, we were actually on a tour called the Tour de Compadres, which was with a band called Need to Breathe and Switchfoot. And we were in a band called Colony House, really, really great young alternative band. And I basically was like, I can't do the tour unless we keep Memphis off the tour, or we let that tour come to Memphis. And so on that night, they let me headline because it was my hometown.
Right.
Even though I was second or 4 on the bill.
Yeah.
For the rest of the tour. And so it was just like a blowout, man. It was awesome.
Wow.
Sold out 4 months in advance. And so the next year we went to a 2-day deal, and it's gotten to this point where we sort of, I'm sure a lot of musicians feel this way. You have these dreams that you dream when you're young, and then if you're lucky, some of them come true, but then you got to figure out how to manage the dream, And so there's all the logistics of throwing a festival were falling into the hands of my partner on the deal, who's my manager, and it just got to a point where we're kind of in over our heads.
Are you guys the promoter?
Yeah.
Or so you didn't partner up with a Live Nation
Not
or something
yet.
like that, right?
Not yet. So we took a year off because I had I had a hospital visit in December. I got meningitis for 9 days, and it put me out for 2 months.
Wow.
And so I didn't have the gas to do it this year. So
Can't do the festival when the promoter's got meningitis.
Right, yeah,
So first
yeah.
rule of the music industry.
no festival while in the hospital. Yeah. So yeah, we actually are. That's the plan this year, is to partner with a bigger promoter and to sort of pass the baton and sort of stay involved in the curation side and the hosting side, but let somebody else manage the whole deal, because I tour 100 days a year. I got a family. It's too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's biting off a lot.
Yeah, it is. But I'm glad we did. It's a really
Yeah.
cool deal. We've had people come from, I think, over the last 3 years, almost every state.
Oh, really?
Yeah, over 46, 47 states.
Wow. I mean, you talked about Memphis being kind of an overlooked city, and I feel like especially nowadays it's kind of overshadowed by the massive expansion
Here.
that's happening here in Nashville.
Yep.
But it's a city that's so rich in musical history and I mean, so important to this country and everything that all of us do musically. So growing up in Memphis, were you aware of that musical heritage? Things, obviously you've got Elvis, but and the Sun Records stuff and all that, but there's also Stax and Ardent and all the blues and the early rockabilly stuff that's sort of forgotten. As a Memphis native, do you grow up with an understanding of that? Is that still
Yeah, I think,
do kids still
for
know
sure.
that shit?
I think they
growing up there?
I think they do, but I think it's like it happens here, like it happens in New Orleans, where the mythology and the touristy sort of kitschy part of it sort of takes over sometimes, and you don't really appreciate it until you step away from it and go somewhere else, and then you like learn the actual history of the town, and you kind of like, for instance, the Stax thing. I didn't even know really anything about the Stax stuff until after I left Memphis and went off to college, and people are like, oh, it's Booker T and the MGs and Stax and Otis Redding, all that stuff. And you're like, oh, I didn't know that was recorded in Memphis.
Right.
Like nobody told me.
Right.
That was just your normal like suburban kid. So I was listening to, Pearl Jam as much as I was listening to Elvis. Like,
Sure.
So.
Sure.
But there was a sense of like being a musician was a like reputable choice.
Right.
Which that's the thing that happens in these music towns like Austin, New Orleans, LA, where it's like, if you choose to be a musician, like people are like, oh, that's cool. Even though like the normal working folks,
right?
The dentists and everything are still like
everybody but your parents.
Yeah,
your parents like, really, dude?
Yeah, totally.
Is that a good choice? I don't know.
That I got lucky there, man. My parents were super supportive, but I have most of their friends were like, why are you letting your kid do that music thing? And they're like, well, because he's making his grades and got a scholarship to college, so he can do whatever he wants.
Right. Why do you think Memphis, like when I go to Memphis, and I don't mean this is any insult to your hometown because I love Memphis, but the downtown area, like it doesn't seem like a city, and I don't even mean this maybe the community at large, but for whatever the civic leaders, government leaders, they're like, why isn't downtown like refurbished and beautiful and thriving and sort of taking advantage of all the stuff that we're talking about?
So it is
sort of like downtown, sort of like a ghost town last time I've ever, all through the years that I've been there.
It's one of those interesting towns. I feel this way kind of like when I go to some of the like upper Midwest cities like Cincinnati or Pittsburgh or maybe even like St. Louis. It's one of those towns where that stuff's happening, but you have to kind of have a tour guide.
Okay.
You kind of got to like know somebody locally to show you where that's happening.
Right.
Because it definitely is. I mean, there's an incredible food scene there. There's an incredible like kind of civic-minded group of folks who are like wanting to do all that. And downtown is finally starting to have that. But I think, just the history of downtown with Dr. King getting shot and the riots that happened there, I think Memphis, more than most cities, experienced this. I mean, basically it was like, this mass exodus of people who left
like
downtown.
White flight.
Yeah, white flight in Memphis was seriously intense. And, it wasn't until I was like in like later years of high school where it was like, oh yeah, we go downtown on a regular basis.
Right.
And even then it was like, well, you need to be back by 10. And,
sure.
The curfew like lost 2 hours when you're going downtown from your parents. It's like, if you're out in the suburbs, you can stay out till 12:30. But if you're going to go downtown, you need to be back out here.
Yeah.
And that's, that is changing. But it takes, I think it takes like, if a city starts to do a lot of neat things, it takes the rest of the world like 3 or 4 years to find out about it.
Sure.
So the good news is it's happening. It's just taking a minute.
Yeah, it's that. And we were just in Cincinnati a couple days ago for a couple days, and it really seems like a city in transition that's thriving. Like a lot of those cities that you're talking about. It's kind of that thing like that I enjoy seeing. That sort of hipsterism is saving America,
right?
It's saving American cities. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Look for craft breweries, good coffee shops,
all that,
good
stuff.
restaurants, and nice boutique
artisanal,
hotels.
This, that, and the other. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't know that replaces the thousands or millions or whatever of good jobs that were lost that tore those cities down in the first place. But it's a step. It's a step. And it's nice to see. I mean, you see it
Detroit
everywhere
too.
you go.
It's happening in Detroit.
Totally. I mean, when I think of like what it was like, I started touring in like 1995, and you would go to these great cities like Cleveland and stuff, and they were just kind of like deserted and
what were the clubs? Were the clubs still in like the heart of town, or were you playing? Were the clubs like sort of out and about?
I was in a punk rock band, so like it was the same joke in every city. You'd get into the town and you'd be driving through it and be like, "Wow, this place looks cool," great, and then. You'd slowly, like, each passing block would get a little shittier, and next thing you know, you'd be like, oh, fuck, there's a Popeye's chicken. And then the club's right next to that, every time it was like the same story, what I mean? So, no, most of those clubs were in kind of shitty neighborhoods. But it's, that's changed a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good to see.
Yeah, we're in that weird sort of place as a touring band where because we've never had, like, massive like national radio success or like we may be in one city and sell 1,000 tickets and the next city we sell 200 and then the next city we sell 1,500. In the next city, we sell like, 400. So we get to see all
Really?
shapes and sizes of clubs depending on where we're playing.
How do you account for that? Like, what do you think that is?
I
Because that
don't
seems
know.
like almost
Yeah.
like throwback old school in the way that you used to have regional artists.
Yeah.
And that doesn't really exist much
Yeah.
anymore, I don't think.
So it's definitely true for us in the South. Like that's the South and Texas and sort of is much better for us. Like we did 2 nights at the Ryman in May, which is 5,000 tickets, and then we just played in Pittsburgh and sold like 250 tickets. So
Really?
it's like there's no, but then we can go to to New York and Boston, the big markets outside of the South,
Sure.
and do pretty well.
Yeah.
But then we get into like Buffalo, Syracuse, or like Grand Rapids, or Spokane, Boise, and it's just a couple hundred folks is a good night.
Yeah,
But then if Denver, it's like, I can get 1,000 people out. So it just, I don't know what to account for that other than just like the way the music sort of moves slowly and finds people where it finds people.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. We've tried to like do the math, but instead we just keep showing up and making music.
I mean, you're your own label boss, right? You have your own label.
That's right,
Correct, that puts
yeah.
out your records. How much do you get into that as a label owner? All the sort of the minutia of all the data that you can collect now with all the streaming, and you can see like really these sort of like very like broken down, like how are people listening to our music and where are they listening to? Does that dictate sort of where you go or how you work your records?
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, we sort of follow. I mean, the interesting thing about like streaming and stuff, you can look and see where it's streaming, and it's basically like, with a few exceptions, it sort of mirrors the population list of the United States. You know, like this is where people are listening to your music. Oh, the most of them are listening in New York, Houston, Dallas, L.A. Chicago. But then there's like in the South, especially, we can go play the SEC towns like Auburn or Athens, Georgia, and it's like way better than when we play like Indianapolis. So it's a lot of those kids that listen to us maybe in high school or whatever, their parents listen to us and now they're in college, or I don't know, there's all this like, and our fans kind of run the gamut of like, young college all the way to like, if we play we love playing like seated theaters, and there'll be like people in their 60s there,
right?
And I love that.
Yeah,
it's kind of the cool thing about being like a song band. It's like certain songs sort of resonate and people come because they love a certain song. It's like I just want to be La Love It, and totally have these people keep coming back years and years.
How objective are you able to keep yourself as a label boss? In terms of like not letting your ego or whatever affect decisions
like,
about where to put
working.
money. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, are you able to do that?
I think I do a pretty good job. I it's funny, even as we're having this conversation, this last record I think was sort of the we've done like 4 or 5 records and they've all gone pretty well, but I'm at a place now with sort of the changing landscape of streaming and everything that I'm sort of ready to partner up, and we're having those conversations. Just
do you not even have a distribution partner or anything?
No, we have a distribution partner, yeah, for sure. But we're just ready to sort of build, like, have a little bit of a bigger team. Part of it for me for a long time was like I had this sort of true north creative vision, and I didn't want anybody touching it.
Yeah.
And I had this sort of entrepreneurial spirit and risk capacity. I'm like pretty risk-oriented person, so I was like, well, I'll just do it myself. Like, I was running the numbers on like what an advance is versus if you sell X amount of records, and like, man, I'm getting hosed, if I do that. But as the landscapes change, it's like it's going to take more. It's basically what's happening is the business side of it's taking away from my creative capacity, and I don't want to do that. Like I got into this because I love writing songs. Of course, I love being on stage. And I love singing in the studio and playing in the studio. Yeah. Working with other people, and as the like music business has changed, I've had to dedicate more time to that side of it, and I want to be spending more time on the creative side, and sort of it's got to that point now. We've got at least a little bit of a good solid history and reputation where it's not like I'm some young artist that's going to get some terrible deal. It's going to be a good situation.
Well, I have to assume with somebody at your level, like you're well known and you have a grassroots following that's
Yeah.
like totally organic that you've won from
They're
hard
loyal.
work.
They're really loyal.
I have to assume that people, major labels have come knocking on your door, or at least poke their head
poking around.
you know,
What's going on in there?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And it's all about finding. For me, it's not about like the name. It's all about the right people,
Right.
the right team. And so it's been kind of fun because I've never really let myself have those conversations because I was just like, no, we're good. We got this. We don't care. And now I'm going into meetings and these people all know who I am,
Right.
Instead of like some manager trying to pitch me,
Sure.
Which makes it a lot better, a lot more fun.
100,000,000%.
Yeah.
With your label, do you sign other bands? Like, do you put out other bands' records, or is it? Do you just put?
No,
out
it's just us.
Right.
We do have a record club, like a vinyl subscription service that we started, and we have started doing like re-release of other people's stuff. So it's a different record every month,
Right.
on vinyl, and I curate that and pick it. And so we've done a couple limited releases of stuff that's either never been out on vinyl or hasn't been out on vinyl in a long time.
Right.
And so that's been the only thing we and that's more of a like, we're not buying the master, we're leasing the master to print it on vinyl,
Sure,
and put it out. So, yeah, it's a weird time in music. We've thought about like, do we want to go after younger artists and do like a real label thing? And it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. Like I realized that I got in this because I want to be an artist, and I did the business side of it because I had to.
Right.
And now I don't have to, so I want to be making music.
Yeah.
And that's what I love.
Yeah, I mean it's a funny thing. I always feel like the more I'm working, touring, doing all that sort of stuff, figuring out the artwork for the record and this and coordinating. It's like it's an exact like if it was on a graph, you just see like my creative time just goes like it's the same line.
It's like, when's the last time you picked up a guitar for fun?
Yeah.
Oh man, it's been weeks.
Yeah.
What am I doing?
Yeah. It's funny. Well, let's back up a little bit. I'm curious, like what growing up was like for you. How you became a passionate music fan, or what sort of like was your family musical? Where did it come from?
Yeah. So my parents loved music. My mom is sort of she can bang around the piano a little bit, and so our alarm clock growing up for school was her playing like old gospel hymns.
Really?
Yeah, just like bum bum ba dum bum ba 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 da ba. Just like just smashing the keys.
Yeah.
And it was like, all right, time to get up, go to school. So that was the only my parents didn't sing in the church choir. My dad didn't play anything. My dad's like a music lover who's honestly like kind of a little bit tone deaf on the singing front, but he loves music, and so we traveled a lot. So
I won't send him the link for this interview.
I've said it before. He knows that. He knows that. I'll send it to him. He'll get a kick out of it. So we did a lot of traveling growing up. I'm the second of 4 kids. My younger brother was a special needs kid, and so we knew we had sort of a limited time altogether. And so Dad sort of had this mentality: let's, like, every chance we get, let's get in the van and go. And so music was just a massive part of that. So I just remember, like, it was a lot of oldies, and it was a lot of Al Green, and it was a lot of Dylan, and it was a lot of like Motown and Beach Boys and just classics, James Taylor. And so he got me my first guitar when I was probably...
Your hat right now has a very Mike Love feel to it.
Doesn't it? Yeah. With the rope on the rope hat.
Yeah.
Oh, man. That's
Admiral
awesome.
Holcomb.
Yeah, Admiral Holcomb. Yeah. Started a beach band right here out of Third Coast, Nashville. So, yeah, I got a guitar, and I started, messing around, learning how to play. I remember, I think the first thing I wanted to learn was, like, Bob Seger tunes. There's something about, like, his, like, I kind of always had this, lower bass register voice. And so,
how old were you at that point?
8th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
But honestly, I never had like dreams of doing this until I got older. So it all, like, the songwriting thing kind of happened for me. There was 2 things happened at the same time. When I was right before my senior year of high school, my brother passed away, the one special needs, and it just kind of wrecked me. And I grew up in like a southern, very like church-going Christian home, and that world treated me really well. Like, it honestly was not like, I didn't find that world to be super oppressive. Part of it was because of the people. Like, I grew up 5 doors down from my grandparents, and they loved me really well, and I had fun with my granddad, and he would take me fishing, and My grandmother was always sweet and kind, still is. She's still alive. But when that happened, like the church stuff wasn't like helping me with that grief.
Right.
And so music is sort of where I found
relief,
comfort, and relief, and sort of helped me like sort of process the sadness and the gratefulness, like the gratitude of the fact that we did have like a good run as a family, you know.
Yeah.
So that's when I really started listening to like sort of so the second part of that was I was driving like maybe a month or two after he died. I was driving down to visit my sister who was a freshman in college, and the guy I was in the car with played the David Gray White Lighter record, and it was like 1 a.m, and I just was like bowled over by this voice and these songs and the delivery and the emotion, and I was like, man, I love that. And that just like was a Pandora's box for me. That like took me to Van Morrison, and it took me to Whiskey Town and Ryan Adams and Patty Griffin and Emmylou Harris and Jackson Brown. It took me to Ghost of Tom Joad, which then eventually took me to Born to Run, and like
sure,
it was just literally like bam, bam, door, like, which is what music does, especially when you're young. And I just found myself just like in a way that I never had like earlier on, just like obsessed with music, and I was listening all the time, and I was spending all of my extra money on CDs, going to Cat's Music and buying everything I could. And so by the time I got to college a year later, I mean, I was like the music guy who took all my new friends that I made at school to see shows. It was like, let's go see as many shows as we can.
Yeah.
And so college was basically just like me drinking from a fire hose, and then did a study abroad thing in Scotland and didn't know anybody, and so started writing songs. That was that was my guitar was my friend over there. It was like,
I mean, were you performing?
No, not at all.
Okay.
So
you didn't have like the high school band kind of experience, none of that stuff.
No, I mean, like I said earlier, I was like involved with, church stuff, and so I'd like get up and play guitar. That was my only like stage experience.
Okay.
And I did the theater. So like Broadway's type high school production.
And
stuff.
so, did you start performing in Scotland?
No, but so I came home from Scotland with just like this bucket of songs.
Right.
And I had known a producer who had been at Ardent. And Paul Ebersold was his name. And he was a family friend. And I said, hey, I've been writing some songs. Like, can I play them for you? And he's like, okay, sure. Like every producer is like, yeah, God, It really was like that. Yeah. So he's like, I don't want to hear him live. Come in and record him with my engineer, just sit in front of a mic, and then I'll listen to him without you being there, so I can like, let you down easy kind of thing,
Right, sure.
So I did. I went to his studio one night late with his engineer, and just, microphone, sung 4 or 5 songs. Took me like 25 minutes. I don't know what it sounded like. This thing, it doesn't exist, I hope.
I mean, what do you think somebody that knows like your last couple records would think if they heard those?
Well, I think
is it a dramatically different thing happening?
I think it's pretty dramatic. I think the earnestness is still there,
right?
But like there was no control. I was singing everything at a 10. I was probably speeding everything up throughout the song, just trying to force a feeling from whoever was going to hear it.
But your producer family friend must have heard something.
He did. He said, he called me. He's like, I hate to say this, but like, I think you should give this a little bit of a shot. And he's like, and I've got a really busy spring after you graduate. If you want to come work at the studio for 6 months, I'll pay you like $700 a month, and you can work on a record with the engineer if you want, and we'll just see what happens.
See how people do it in the studio.
So he did that. In the meantime, he told me, go play some shows. So I just called these bars in Knoxville for the, I had 1 semester left, and I was like, hey, can I?
Were you going to school in Knoxville?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like, can I come play? And they're like, yeah, if you can bring people. First time, we're not going to pay you, but if you bring people, maybe we'll do it again. So I played this little barbecue joint, and I was like pestering all my friends, like, you have to come to the show. And they're all like, what are you talking? What do you mean show? You're just our buddy. You play shows, And so I did, and like probably 10% of the people that were there, which was like 5 people, which was enough to sort of pulled me aside and were like, hey, that was good.
Really?
You should do it again.
Yeah.
And then
that's not often the reaction people get from their first gig.
Yeah, well, like I said, it was only 10%. The other people were like, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's not really my thing. But I was like, I was really, copying basically the people I loved. It was
Right.
I was copying.
Well, that's how you start, right?
Yeah, I was copying
Yeah.
Steve Earle and Christopherson and Ryan Adams and David Gray, and I was singing with this drawl that's not my actual voice, but yeah, you're figuring it
Yeah.
out, and I'm just
Well,
hammering
there's a certain
away at my
element
guitar.
that, rock and roll or whatever you want to call it is to some extent a put on.
For sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you got to create like your own mythology at some
Totally.
point,
Yeah.
and every great artist has some of that.
Yeah. Or a lot of it.
Or a lot, or that's all they are.
Right. Yeah, totally.
Are you actually a real
Yeah.
person anymore? It's
Yeah.
it's all mythology. I mean, it's like I was doing this tour thing called Kayamo. It's a
Oh, yeah, sure.
like a singer-songwriter cruise. And
Yeah.
It's like all these legends on there.
Yeah.
So I'm in the casino one night and I look over and Lucinda Williams is at the slot machine
Nice.
and she's pretty liquored up and she's just pounding the slot machine. I was like, I'm gonna go meet her, and then I was like, no, that's exactly what I like. After hearing and loving her records, I'm like, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Like I don't need to meet her.
Totally.
I just saw her in her element.
Dude,
whether that's her or that's the mythology, I don't know.
Right.
But
I've had that moment a couple times in life. I actually saw AC/DC, the Young Brothers, and one of the other guys was sitting in a hotel, like the cafe down
Yeah.
at the hotel one time. This years ago when I first joined Foo Fighters, and we just happened to be in the same town.
yep.
And I walked in, and it was like the first thing in the middle of the day or whatever, and nobody's in there. And I went to go get like a water at the bar, and I look over, and it's fucking Angus
like,
and
oh my
Malcolm.
gosh.
And my eyes must have just fucking bugged out of my head, man. And I was just like, and of course, your instinct is, I'm gonna go over there and be like, I love you, blah.
And we're gonna be friends.
Yeah, you know what I mean. But I had that moment of clarity, like, you know what? I'm gonna leave them alone. That's gonna be my fan gift to those guys.
Yeah, leave
and
them
they all
alone.
kind of looked at me like, you're not gonna come over here right now, dude.
You're like, okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
That's
happens.
funny.
It's kind of the mythology thing is you don't want to ruin it, but then sometimes you get to meet people. If it happens naturally, it's fun.
Yeah.
But when it's forced, it always doesn't. It never feels right.
Yeah, it's awkward.
Yeah.
Can be.
Can
It's
be.
always great when it's great, though.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And you 9 times out of 10 when you meet one of those legends, it's pretty great.
Yep.
You know. They don't have anything to prove usually.
So my favorite of that moment, I have this song called "Here We Go." This real fun up tempo sing along kind of like Jack Johnson-y kind of thing, and the music video is us wearing all these sort of absurdist costumes. So I'm singing in a banana suit, and I wrote this like line dance in the middle of the song, and it's like all of us are doing this like electric slide kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we did this gig opening for Don Henley, and I'm a huge fan of his solo
Sure.
work and obviously the Eagles and everything. So we get there and they're like basically telling us the security's super tight. You can't go to sound check. You can't go to catering when he's in there. Like all these really tight things, which I get when you're that sort of legend or whatever. But I was pretty disappointed, because I was like, I was hoping to get to meet him. So we get the stage and we're sound checking and he's gone somewhere. And all of a sudden, like in the middle of sound check, this big security guy taps you on the shoulder and he goes, "Mr. Henley would like to say hello." And I turn around and he's like right here, like 3 feet away.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, thanks for having us open the show." And he's like, "Oh, thank you. Thanks for being here." He's like, "Love that banana video, man." He's like, "You write that dance?" And I was like, "I sure did." And he's like, "Me and my kids, we laugh all the time at that." And I'm just in my mind going,
Oh
"What
my God, what
is happening right
Yeah,
now? This is the
amazing.
best conversation with Don
Yeah.
Henley I could have imagined."
And that was the last thing on your mind when you made that dance up.
Yeah, it was like, I wonder if Don Henley will
Right.
watch this someday. Yeah. So sometimes
perfect.
you get surprised and you
Yeah.
have these great interactions.
Okay, so how do you go from just starting out at the barbecue joint to putting a band together? And has it always been the neighbors? The
Neighbors.
I was about to call it the neighborhood, but the neighbors.
So I moved back to Memphis after college. I got the job at the studio and was playing on the weekends as much as I could. Like that was sort of the goal, was just to get on stage and practice and open for people. And so there's a really great singer-songwriter in Memphis named Corey Brannon that did an 8-week residency, and he let me open 5 of the shows. The High Tone Cafe, I opened for Chris Knight and Bill Maloney from the Vigilantes of Love, and opened for this guy named Ian Moore from Seattle. Just got all these. Anytime they had a solo singer-songwriter for that whole year, I was like, well, me,
guy.
Right?
Yeah.
And I would always bring out 20 or 30 people, which helps those little club shows.
Sure.
They'd give me $100 and some burgers. So.
Yeah.
In that, the guy that sort of taught me how to play guitar back in high school introduced me to this. He's like, "Hey, you got to meet this kid from my church. He plays everything." And so I'm go meet this guy. His name's Nate Duggar. He's a senior in high school. I'm 22, so he's 17 or 18. And we sit down just, to jam, or whatever. And he's like a freak musician. So I'm like, you got to come play with me, So he, and at the time I'd put together like a random assortment of players from different bands in town anytime I'd play a full band show, which is like once a month. And so he comes up and plays, and we really hit it off and like really creatively gelled. And he leaves and comes here to go to Belmont. And then I moved to Knoxville to go like lock it down with my wife at the time, who was my girlfriend.
Okay.
So we both left Memphis around the same time.
Yeah.
And I was like, anytime I had a gig on the weekends, I'd call him up and say, hey, do you want to come play? And so that was, 13 years ago. Yeah. So Nate was like, this young kid who was, really good, but also like a really great hang. And that's so much of what makes like a band work. And there was this kind of this obvious thing from the start that like, this is not this is not democracy, but also I don't know everything. So I know when I need other people to speak up and, tell me how to get better. But I'm also going to make the choices.
That's an interesting thing. And I was wondering, because I also read that like some of the guys in your band write for you guys, or maybe you guys write together. Which seemed a little at odds with being a solo artist. And so I was wondering if you consider yourself a solo artist, or is this a band, or is it some kind of hybrid of both things, or what?
I think it's a hybrid. It's probably like the way Petty sort of looked at it. It's like, these are my songs, this is my creative vehicle, but I know that I have no legs to stand on if it's just me, or less legs to stand on. So the writing together thing didn't come about until later. Like, this was actually this latest record,
And you guys had like weekly writing sessions, is that?
Yeah, we got together every Monday. After the record before that, I was sort of creatively in a rut, and needed and also knew their instincts, and I was like, man, you guys should be writing songs, like their instincts are so good. And so I at first I was like, just throw some ideas and send them my way, let's see if it makes sense. And they were sending me these ideas, and I was like, every one of them I wanted to write, so we started getting together, and sometimes it was just two of us with like Rich, the bass player, or sometimes it was me and Nate, or sometimes it was all three of us. And like 7 of the 11 songs on the record are like that, and the other 4 I wrote alone. But there was a lot of collaboration on this newest one, but that came after years of making music together. I mean, we didn't do that for 9 years. So
can you talk a little bit about your writing process, like just what you, besides the sort of co-writing sessions with your bandmates, like what do you do as a writer? Like how do you do your craft or whatever?
I think for me it usually starts with some sort of musical idea on the guitar, and then I collect words, phrases, sentences in a journal. I don't journal, but it's a book full of words.
Something pops into your head, you write it down.
Or sometimes I'll sit down with the newspaper and just grab interesting words and try to write down 50 words on a piece on the page, and then come back to it. And if I have a musical idea, I'll be like, like record, that's a good word. Let's throw that in this little melody I got, and start to like sort of shape an idea. And then when I'm really having a hard time writing a song, I have this trick that I do where I'll take a classic song, I'll print the lyrics out, and make completely new music to it.
Oh, wow.
And sing those words, and I'll create a melody and a musical idea, and then I'll can the words, and now I've got like a new foundation for a song.
Wow.
So it's like, you take, I don't know, something like Let It Be, and you completely rewrite the music to it and make it like something completely different, and then you chunk the words.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I gotta
tell you, I don't know where I got that.
I've interviewed a bunch of people over the last several years, and I always ask about how they write their stuff. That's the best answer I've ever gotten. I swear to God, most people...
I cheat, basically, is the answer.
But the whole answer, but it was great, because most people can't really articulate how they write songs. I think it's a mystery even to the most, hardened songwriters. It's a lot of the time.
Well, that's the crazy thing about it is like there are songs in my sort of catalog that are, let's just take my 5 most popular songs. There's one in there that literally took me 3 years to finish. I knew I had something, but I just could never find the right, and it was more of a groove problem. It was either this train beat thing, and that felt weird, or it was this super ballady thing, and then ended up finally finding this kind of middle, mid-tempo, real cool groove thing for it. It literally took 3 years, and tried to put it on 3 different records or 2 different records before it finally
Right.
made its home. That's one song, and then you have another one, this song that I wrote called "Live Forever," that I'm not kidding, I wrote it in 12 minutes, and it's probably like our third most popular song. It's been on like 20 different TV shows, and
Right.
it won a sports Emmy and it's like I literally just said it just happened.
Right. Just fell out of
It
you.
fell out of me.
Yeah.
In an emotional moment.
Yeah. It's nice when that happens.
Man, it's awesome.
I wish they were all
I
like
know.
that, right?
You just gotta like sit in your house, get
Yeah.
sad, drink like half a bottle of red wine,
Yeah.
and then something will happen.
You heard it here first, kids. That's the secret.
It works for me.
And sorrow. Yeah, that probably is the secret to a lot of
sorrow and Cabernet will get you a good song.
That's a song title right there.
There you
man.
go. I write that
Yeah,
down.
yeah. All right. So, at what point did you start making records? And I assume that coincided with you starting your label.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Like, did you go try to like shop around demos and stuff, and nothing was happening? So you just said, "Fuck it, I'm going to do it myself." Was it
Yes,
one of those
that's
kinds?
exactly what happened.
Okay.
Yeah, I recorded a 5-song EP with the guy I was mentioning earlier, his assistant, and I thought as a confident 21-year-old, like, this thing is gonna like happen, and it's gonna happen fast,
Right.
And I put it out.
I'm going to put this out there. I'm going to be heading straight to the Lamborghini dealer.
Yeah, man. It's
I'm going to start looking at mansions.
Yeah, it's like, so I'm going to send this so and so, and they're going to have me open their world tour, and this thing is just like going to happen, But obviously, it wasn't like that. And the interesting thing that if I had like one thing to do over again, I would have waited to record until I had like, I think I recorded 5 of the first 10 songs I had, and I wish that I had written 50 and picked the
Right.
top 5. Waited another 18 months, but when you're 21. 12 to 18 months seems like an eternity.
Fuck yeah.
So I was just like, no, I gotta record. I gotta
Nobody's
get it.
patient at
No
that
one's
point.
patient at that
And
point.
musicians tend to be impatient just
And you think
anyway.
you're better than you are.
Of course.
Or at least that was my
Of course,
thing. I was
yeah.
like, no, I'm good. Like,
Yeah.
let's
The
do
world
this.
needs to hear this.
Yeah. They have been waiting. I mean, I am the new Dylan, or whatever.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
such a lie you tell yourself. So I put that out, and it was like, it was fine. Like, I was hawking them out of the car, and but then I finally got serious about sort of the touring front. I got involved with this like college coffee house circuit around the country, which was pretty brutal touring. It was like, you're playing at, community colleges at noon on a Thursday because the school has this budget they have to spend. So they throw $300 at singer-songwriters. And so I'm traveling literally all over the country. I put 200,000 miles on my Volvo station wagon in 24 months, just playing wherever I could, making $300-400.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, started really writing. I think finally starting to write some really like substantial songs that were the first ones that sort of gave me a leg up. And I shopped that record that I made. I made that EP, and then I made a real record like a year later, a year and a half later. That's when I was doing all the heavy touring, and some things started to sort of break. I got like, a 2-week tour opening for this singer-songwriter that I liked, and it's 8 real shows opening in a club with real fans there.
Right.
I played this famous writers thing at Eddie's Attic in Atlanta, which is where like Mayer and Indigo Girls and Sean Mullins all got their start. And I started sort of building a fan base in Atlanta out of that. And then, I still had friends in some of these college towns, and I'd go and play these, crappy joints, but like actually starting to like, maybe I think I have a couple hundred fans.
Right.
And these aren't friends, these are fans.
Yeah.
And then that song I was telling you about that I wrote in 15 minutes, I wrote that song probably in 2007. So like 3 or 4 years into the whole deal. And that producer gave me this great piece of advice that I didn't believe when I was very young. He said, if you write the right song, it'll do half the work for you. And that was the first time that happened, was with that song. It's called Live Forever. Recorded it like a month after it came out. NBC used it as a season finale closer on Parenthood.
Oh, wow.
And it was like this big moment. And so the next thing you know, we're playing in Austin, Texas for the first time at a 250 cap club, and we sold it out.
Right.
And we're like, what?
Starting
And
to feel real
and they're
movement,
singing
real progress.
singing every word of that song.
Yeah.
Same thing happens in like a couple other places, and we're like, okay, we've got a thing. And then I've been very fortunate to have like the hometown support, both in Memphis, Nashville, and Knoxville. Like if you take those 3 towns out of my story,
Yeah.
I probably couldn't have made it.
Interesting.
So like those 3
It can't
places.
be easy in Nashville in particular.
No,
it
it-
was such
yeah.
a crowded
So crowded.
scene.
It's so crowded, but I had support from a lot of friends, and then Lightning 100 was supportive of me
yeah.
early on because they do this Sunday night show at 3rd and Lindsley, and the PD runs the show. He's the MC, or he used to be. He's passed away now. They have a different team, but he took a liking to me and my songs like very early on, and so I'd play that show twice a year, and it's broadcast live. And then he started spinning, my first quote unquote single, which
Right.
I think got added on like maybe 12. Non-com AAA stations.
Yeah.
And then the TV and film stuff has been really helpful. We've had a lot of cool, like, there's not like a great spot for what I do at radio, or at least there hadn't been until Americana Radio's kind of
Sure.
doing its thing, and some AAA. But, that was our radio, was like being on TV. How I Met Your Mother, Criminal Minds, all this stuff, and made fans all over the world through that.
Wow.
And so it's just been like hustle, tour as much as you can, get lucky sometimes.
Sure.
Never like massive lucky, but like, to use the baseball metaphor, it's like hit a lot of singles,
Right.
Never been like a big home run hitter.
Yeah.
But we've had some great moments, and we love what we do. And
Do you tour much outside of the country?
we've done Europe 3 times.
Okay.
Yeah. Mainly UK, Ireland, and like Scandinavia.
Yeah.
So we haven't really hit much of like, I think Amsterdam is the only like mainland Europe
Right.
place we've played, or not just Amsterdam, but the Netherlands. But yeah, we've done UK, Ireland 3 times, Scandinavia twice.
Seems like they have a real hunger for, anything sort of Americana,
Yeah, storyteller,
rootsy,
yeah.
that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, we've been well received there.
Yeah.
But we got started kind of late, because
Yeah.
we're already doing pretty well over here, and then I go over there and you're starting out back at the like 100 cap clubs,
Yeah.
and with little kids at home, it's like I don't even want to do that like once a year.
Oh, you have kids?
Yeah,
Oh, well, how many kids?
I got 2, 5 and 2.
Oh, okay, so they're young. Yeah, I got 3 boys.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
How
yeah.
old?
14, 11, and 9.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you're in the
we're
thick
sort of
it,
out
man.
of those real early years. I mean, it's crazy. With my oldest he's such a teenager. It's just wild.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's great. It just
Yeah.
gets better all the time, believe me.
Does
But
he
it
still
does
think
get
you're
harder to
cool?
leave. Oh, no, he does not think I'm cool. Are you kidding? I don't think that any of them think I'm cool anymore. It's a weird thing, and I always wonder, like, what my kids' sort of perception of me and the world and
rock
the weird
music
rock
and-
music
yeah.
that, it's... just because they grew up around it, but they're still kind of like, I've always kind of kept my family a little out of it,
Yeah.
I mean, they come out on tour in the summertime and all that stuff, but
It's
I
not
don't
part
feel
of your
like,
story,
yeah, you know what I mean, and I don't, and it's not like they're out all the time to where it's still like a special thing when they come
Yeah.
out on tour, you know what I mean? But so I just always wonder like what it must be like, there's all the mystery that was wrapped up in what was going on with my favorite bands, they just must not have.
right?
You know
'Cause
what I
they're
mean?
in the thick of it.
Yeah. I mean, my oldest just listens to nothing but the craziest fucking hip hop you've ever heard in your life now. So I don't even, at some point, maybe rock and roll come back around for him, but he ain't there right now.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting moment in music kind of history because, the electric guitar is not having its best moment,
I know.
but people still love rock music. It's just like,
dude, it's so
it's
bizarre.
an interesting thing right now.
We get, we just put out a new Foo Fighter record,
Yeah.
and we've been doing like tons of promo and like interviews and all the stuff you do to like, around the release of a record. And that is the question we get asked, like in every single interview, is some version of like, what's it like to play an extinct genre of music, or what's it
You're
like
just
to
like-
be a rock band at a time when no one cares about rock music, all this stuff where I'm like, wow.
Like,
really?
You're trying to make me feel like this? Or, well, just come to the show and see how many people care because it's going fine.
It is an interesting question. I know what they mean.
Yeah.
Really what they mean is that rock music isn't in the mainstream.
Right.
Which is true,
Yeah, it is true.
And it's even sort of deeper than that. It's like guitar music. It's not necessarily rock.
It's interesting. I read this article about the most famous guitarist of the millennial generation is Taylor Swift.
Really?
Well,
I thought you were going to come with Jack White or something.
No, not the best,
Right.
but the most influential.
Right.
And so, like, Guitar Center this guy on this radio podcast I was listening to was talking. This guy from Guitar Center was like, she's the best thing that happened to us. Because for like 6 years, every 12 to 15-year-old girl wanted a guitar for Christmas.
Right.
They all want to like pen songs, and like I think that Mayer is like this phenomenal player.
Sure.
But he doesn't inspire like Hendrix like loyalty or frenzy or like but she does. But it's not because she's like ripping.
Right.
It's because she's emoting like crazy.
Sure. And they all know that she writes that stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Which is why she's been so...
Yeah.
But now that her music's sort of taken a turn away from that, like it's another moment of like, well, there goes another guitar player.
Well, what you just told me is giving me a real insight into why Guitar Center doesn't stock my Fender Signature model. Plug. You can order online, kids. It's funny though, because I thought when like, Guitar Hero or whatever, that rock band, there was all those video games that were like not actually playing guitar, but kind of, pretend guitar games or whatever, that had like Foreigner songs and,
all the stuff.
AC/DC song and all that
Bad
stuff.
Company.
I thought that was going to foster this new generation of little rocker kids, because all those kids got turned on to classic rock through that, right? And then that seems to have coincided with every shopping mall has like a guitar school of rock kind of thing. And I see a lot of like my kids' friends go through those things. So it seems
it's in there.
Logical
right.
that all these kids learning how to play Beatles songs at the mall and playing the, AC/DC video game would go on to create that stuff, but it doesn't appear to be happening. Or maybe it is, and it's just
maybe
there's going to be this boom, soon.
It's
I don't know.
Hopefully, yeah.
It's I mean, rock, like not rock, but like guitar music, I don't think can ever go away because it's just so easy to access. Well, it's so much easier to pick up a guitar and learn 3 chords than it is to learn how to do, program stuff on your computer.
And it was cool, like when you had the beginning of the like Mumford Lumineers, Head in the Heart, Monsters and Men, like, there is like popular culture music that is built around like people with guitars making music, but it's not having the big moment. But there's also like, I feel like we look back, like people, I feel like people our age were always like, man, radio used to be so awesome.
Right.
Like I imagine in the 70s, I'm like, yeah, it was all Van Morrison and like Carole King and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, some of those were number ones, but like Brown Eyed Girl was not even a top 10 hit.
Really?
Yeah. Like it was a like radio staple way after the fact.
Right.
But it was not. If you go look at what was like super popular on 70s radio and 80s radio, like it's not always quite as like beautiful and perfect as we make it out in our minds.
Well, also, I mean,
in the 90s too, like some of the rock stuff, like
sure.
I mean, there was some bad stuff that was really popular.
Yeah, of course.
Alongside the really good stuff.
Yeah.
So
for every like one good thing, there's it spawns like 50 things that are
copycats.
So great.
Right. Yeah.
And it's always been that way. And it's interesting too, because like when I was a kid I was born and I'm 46 years old, so I was a little kid through the 70s and into the 80s. And I remember being a little kid in the early 80s and people just like lamenting how shitty music was at that time. And it's so funny because you look back on that and
like
it seems
Duran
like a
Duran,
golden age of like amazing shit
all this
happening,
great stuff.
Yeah. Even most of the stuff, I was like a heavy metal kid, so most of the stuff I hated luckily got drilled into my head through like just watching MTV all the time or whatever, and still was like turned out to be an influence, you know what I mean? And it was actually like, I think one of the great sort of periods of music.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that was pre me, but it was like I was young. I was old enough to sort of like I wasn't second. My sister's only a year older than me, but I had friends who had siblings that were 7, 8, 9, 10 years older.
Yeah.
And I remember I had this one friend. I'd go over, we'd go to his brother's room, and we would just like listen to like The Cure and all this like stuff, REM and all these Duran, all these records that that were like before us, and we thought it was so cool. And even like. Obviously U2 was still making very influential music in the mid 90s. Yeah. But they're like 80s stuff is what we thought was cool.
Totally.
And so we're going back and like digging into
Joshua Tree and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. And so there was like, but I do think there's like this sort of, we have this kind of capacity to sort of glorify what was. And I feel like you're saying that the guitar is going to stay central to, like, going to stay central to music over time. It's just having sort of a weird moment.
Yeah.
But it's all I know how to play, so it's all I can do.
I know, yeah, me too. That's my only skill set.
Right. I'm like,
yeah,
so
you're stuck with it.
maybe this is just me, like, while I'm the drink. No, we're good. We're not drowning over
it's
here.
not going anywhere. I mean, but I really think it is true that there is tons of great music out there, and just, you know, I guess the real question is, why doesn't a lot of that stuff break through in the mainstream? And that's a bigger issue. But there's, for people that want to find it, it's out.
Well, look
there.
at Ed
There's
Sheeran.
a lot of it. Right. Yeah.
I mean, one of the biggest pop acts in the world right now is a guy playing a guitar by himself on stage.
Right. It's crazy. Yeah.
You know, so it's there. It's ubiquitous.
Yeah.
It's just like,
Definitely.
yeah.
Speaking of playing a guitar by yourself, would you like to play a song?
Yes. Do you have a guitar?
Oh, shit. You know what? I don't. I didn't know if...
So they told me to, I was supposed to go home and grab it, and then I got stuck because, anyways, I don't have it.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good. I have a little electric one, but you don't want to play a song on
Okay.
that. I won't
Can you
voice
just,
that
Can
on
you just do like a record track instead or
Totally,
something?
yeah,
Okay,
totally. If you'd like to sing some a cappella.
Yeah, you know.
Or maybe like a spoken word, maybe a little Luke the Drifter kind
Do
of
a
vibe.
little,
Yeah, there
Delta
you go.
blues,
There
you
you go. All right, that was Drew Holcomb on Walking the Floor. Make sure you check him out, because I'm sure he's out on the road somewhere right now. That man tours all the time. As a matter of fact, I'm going to post a bunch of links on walkingthefloor.com for you to check out, of like referring back to things in the interview that we discussed. So get over to walkingthefloor.com and check it out, and check out Drew, and go support him. While you're at it, don't forget to listen to my vast collection of incredible interviews on Walking the Floor in the iTunes store or on Spotify. We're in Spotify. Or you can listen to it on walkingthefloor.com when you're checking out those Drew Holcomb links. There you go. I'll be back in a couple weeks with legend Tony Joe White. Adios, amigos!
The sky so blue. I want you to live forever underneath the sky so